Time for another mailbag here on Chicago Bears Now. Oh, I love this username. Lombardi bound. I hope so. Could the Bears trade Tyrique Stevenson this offseason? Could they? Yes. Will they? I'd be surprised because A, his value is probably down after last season. And B, I still believe in the talent. I still believe in the player. I think Al Harris is the perfect coach to bring in here because he's a no-nonsense coach, but he's also a guy that played in this league for a long time with emotion. Reek has emotion as well. I think he's a guy that can get the most out of him and get him back on track. I still am a believer of Tyrique Stevenson. I love his physicality. I like his ball skills. Just got to build his confidence back up, and obviously he's got to eliminate some of the I don't want to say childlike behavior, but he's just got to mature a little bit. I don't want him to not be an edgy corner because I like that, but you got to know where the line is, and he crossed that line a few too many times last year. So I'm keeping Tyrique Stevenson. I still think him and Jalen Johnson could be an excellent outside corner pairing. Okay, what say you? Name a player that the Bears should trade away. Is there someone on this roster that you would like to trade to another team? If there is, let us know who it is. All right, super chat from Michael. He says Trey's wife is from Chicago. Yeah, I saw this going around on social media. Trey Smith's, I don't know if it's his wife or girlfriend, whatever the case may be. Bears Twitter going full FBI on us. She is from Chicago, apparently. So, hey, could be another angle for the Bears getting Trey Smith in free agency. Chicago, certainly a destination city. Simone Biles loves being in the city, so maybe Trey Smith's girl does as well. We would welcome the Smiths with open arms in Chicago, that is for sure. And I maintain, I think it's the Chiefs or the Bears. Either the Chiefs find a way to bring him back or the Bears get him in free agency. I really do think it's going to be one of those teams. Other teams will be interested. Other teams will offer money, but I do think it'll be one of those teams is where he ends up. Jake Kelly, what's the chances of the Bears moving up to get Grey Zabel? Like trading up from the second round to late first or something like that. There's certainly a chance. I mean, I think it depends what would happen in free agency. Like, have they not really addressed center, or have they maybe signed like a one-year guy and they think Zabel can be a long-term guy, or maybe they view Zabel as a guard. It really depends on the evaluation. If they think he's a first-round talent and he's sitting there in the mid-late 20s and they want to move up from one of their second-round picks to go get him, then yeah, that certainly could happen. Obviously, if you're going to trade up and move a day 2 pick to go get a player, then you need to feel conviction about that player you're going to get. So wouldn't rule it out. I think he's right on that round 1, round 2 fringe in terms of where he could go. I'd say as early as low 20s and as late as falling to the Bears 39 or 41. I think he'll be somewhere between 20 and 40. Okay, we are sponsored by PrizePicks here on today's show. The best daily fantasy sports app is PrizePicks, where you can get in on all the action and make money on daily fantasy sports. As, listen, all the sports are available. Basketball season is rolling along. Set your lineups today. 2 or more players. Pick more, pick less on the stats available. And if you hit, you win money. The deal we're offering you is this. Sign up with our link at prizepicks.com/CLNS. If you use our code CLNS, you'll get a $50 bonus when you sign up and play for just $5 right out of the gate. So definitely take advantage of that opportunity. Here's a lineup from the little hockey action here. If you're watching after Thursday, we'll see if I hit. Less on Connor McDavid, more on Connor. I'm going to mispronounce that. And then Matthew Thatchuk as well. I like the more on half a point. Like him to get in on scoring. So take advantage. 2 to 6 player lineups, 2 or more players. As long as it's on 2 or more different teams within those lineups, you can cross over sports within your lineups. You could have a hockey player, a basketball player, soccer player all in the same lineup if you want to at prizepicks.com/CLNS. 10 million users and counting in North America. You should be one of them. Check it out today. We got Landon Meeks with the $5. Appreciate it. He says, what do you think about Jaire Alexander? And what about Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift? He should be cheap with injuries. And if he balls, then hey, great move. Re-sign Keenan Allen. We'll start with that one. Not completely shutting the door on Keenan. I think it depends on price. I think the Bears will let him test the open market, see what's out there. If a team is willing to offer him a decent price tag for him to go back to the West Coast. I think they just let him go. If that number shrinks and they revisit it, I could see him being back. I personally would like to add more speed, but if the price is right, I'm not opposed to it. As far as Jaire Alexander goes, if he gets cut by the Packers, which I think he will, I'm not opposed, but I think if you're doing that, you're basically saying that he's going to start over Tyrique Stevenson, which I guess is fine, but then you might as well trade Tyrique because he only has 2 years left on his rookie contract at that point, and Trey Smith is a good backup. So I would not go that route. Alexander has had a ton of injuries over the last 4 years. In the last 4 years, he has one season where he played 16 games. The other 3, 4, 7, and 7. Hadn't even played half the games. So I would probably pass on that. As far as Nick Chubb goes, a loaded question here, getting your money's worth, Landon. He seems pretty cooked. I mean, if you want to bring him in for cheap, but to me, that's not like the 1-2 punch I keep referring to. Like, to me, that's like a take a flyer. If something happens, great. Like, I would still want to draft a running back if they sign Nick Chubb. John Orticelli, what plans does Poles have for drafting or signing a quality tight end to back up Kmet? Is Ertz available? Zach Ertz is available. I think they would look at more of a blocking tight end in free agency in particular. That is probably what I would do. I'm certainly open to Ertz. You could do some 12 personnel with him and Kmet. That certainly would be fun. At his stage in his career, 34, 35 years old, though, like, he's probably going to want to sign with a more surefire contender or just stay in Washington, I would guess. Could he return to Philly or something like that? I wouldn't rule that out. I just don't know if he would roll the dice on Chicago with a bit of uncertainty heading into next season in terms of how good this team could be. I think if a lot goes right, they could be really good like the Commanders were last year. If not, though, a player like him at the amount of miles on his legs, he may not want to take that chance. Subscribe to Bears Now. We cover every single major piece of Bears news, rumors, draft, free agency coverage, trade buzz. You know the drill. If it's Bears related, I'm giving my takes on it. Sometimes you agree, sometimes you don't. That's where the banter comes in with these live shows. So hit that subscribe button. We have a good time here. Dennis, the Chicago kid. Appreciate the 5. If we trade down, get another second, who is a name we'd be interested in that we haven't talked about? Who is a day 2 guy that we haven't talked about that would be interested in? I think he's been mentioned, and stay tuned if you're watching live for my next mock draft, but I would not rule out drafting Xavier Watts in the second round. I think the Bears' safety position has bigger question marks than people want to admit, and we all want to do trenches. I do too, obviously, but do not rule out a somewhat notable investment at safety, whether it be in the draft or free agency. Sports news, bring back Khalil Mack and sign Josh Sweat. That's redundant. I don't think you need both. I'd be open to either of those guys. I think some teams probably going to overpay on Sweat. I'm not sure what Mack's market will be, but if you sign one of those guys to pair with Montez Sweat, I certainly would not be opposed. I'd probably rather go Khalil Mack on a shorter-term deal and then try to find a long-term edge, whether it's in this draft or the next, in the draft. Josh Sweat, he's not old, but he's 28, and you're going to have to pay him like a high-level starter. Feels a little risky to me. I'm not out on Josh Sweat, but if you're telling me it's north of $20 million per year, that might cause me to pass. Fill in the blank for us. The Bears will win blank games next season. Be 0-17. Unless we're talking playoffs, 0-20. Let us know how many games the Bears winning next year. Fill in the blank for us in the comments. Captain Bears hype man in the world of landing Trey Smith and Drew Dahlman. How much would you spend on a vet free agent for left guard? I think in that situation, you're talking about 1-year guys, right? Because you could still just draft somebody, right? The Kevin Zeitlers, the Brandon Scherfs, Zach Martin just retired, so he's out. Those two are guys I would look at on 1-year deals. I wouldn't go into the double-digit figures. I wouldn't go north of $10 million on a 1-year deal for those guys. If you wanted to do like 2 years at 8 or 9 a year, or 7, like 2 for 16 for one of those guys, I guess that's fine. But if you're doing that, you're already paying Trey Smith north of 20, Dahlman north of 10. Do you want to pay another starting offensive lineman north of 10? I'd rather just draft somebody, like re-sign Matt Pryor for cheap to be a high-quality backup, find a starter in the draft, and go that route. Alan Melendez, top left tackle options for the Bears this offseason. Well, I still think if I were a betting man, I would say Braxton Jones is this team's left tackle next year. I think he's more than serviceable. He's got 1 year left on his rookie contract, so you got a cheap starting left tackle for 1 more year. Then you reevaluate next year. But if you wanted to sign a free agent, there's 3 names I think worth monitoring. Ronnie Stanley for the Ravens, Alaric Jackson from the Rams, and Cam Robinson from the Vikings. I'm out on Robinson. I think he and Braxton are very similar, and Cam's going to cost north of $15 million per year, so I would just keep Braxton Jones. I think Jackson and Stanley are upgrades, but are they massive upgrades to the point where you give Stanley north of $20 million given his injury history? Jackson probably $18 to $20 million. I'd rather put money on the interior of the offensive line and draft a guy that could be your left tackle long term. There's guys you could draft that are kind of twofold. There's a few of these where you start them at left guard as rookies, and maybe they take over at left tackle long term. Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, a couple of guys that could fit that mold. So I think Braxton will probably be the week 1 starter, but it wouldn't shock me if they looked elsewhere either. All right, give me a follow on social media. It's at HGramNFL, both on Twitter and on Instagram. DMs are wide open. I know I got to catch up on Instagram, but I will do that. Ask me your questions. We could talk ball anytime you guys want, so find me over there.